going in to round 6 now. We're about the end of the day here. The tournament has had some long delays, so now it's about like 2 a.m. I think, my time, which is not really that bad because like I make sure to adjust my sleep schedule for these tournaments. So, and I'm all good, you know. I think I like got up at like 3 p.m. or something for this tournament, so yeah, it's not that bad. But you can definitely still feel that it's been like a long day of Magic playing, so there's that. I'm up against Ondrej Strasky this round. Definitely not an easy opponent. You know, like one of the best players in the world right now. Whenever he cares to care, which it doesn't seem like he didn't for this tournament based on his tweets, but he's still playing this Aura deck that he got from his teammates. And blue-white Auras is quite interesting. It's been making some rounds recently. That has been, you know, this like, do you play the black-white deck or the blue-white deck already? Where recently people have been tending towards the blue-white deck because it's better against Phoenix and Control. Specifically like stuff like Spell Piercers and Selfless Saviors or important pieces of that deck. And Esper Sentinel is usually better in the blue-white deck, which cares a lot more about drawing cards. But now we also have Light Pause from the new set here, which is, this is like an alternate artwork, but it's like the 2-mana 2/2 that's like whenever you cast an aura, you can search up another aura from your deck and put it into play, attached to Light Pause. So Light Pause kind of gives this like extra dimension where you have like a little bit of a toolbox. This deck doesn't really exploit it too much, but since Light Pause says like the aura you search up can't have the same name as any other aura in play, that's why this deck is running 1 Curiosity on top of the 4 Curious Obsession, because that's why, like, you know, when you play a Curious Obsession, you will also get to like find a Curiosity. And the same reason for the 1 All Deck Glitters, which is usually not played in blue-white auras, but you can find that with Staggering Insight, and then like that makes it a whole lot more bearable. But this matchup generally, it's like, especially game 1, it's like can be kind of tough for the food deck. You don't have that much interaction, and especially stuff like Selfless Savior can save them. And also Esper Sentinel can be like really a pain in the ass to get through, because it's like you just have so many non-creature spells in your deck. So yeah, that's just kind of a problem. Like they easily get to like draw cards, and then obviously like once you put a Cane Flight on something, then it just gets really hard to block. And you can definitely keep away a Spirit Dancer with some like Staggering Insight on it, with if you have like your Cat Oven combo, because like this deck has no interaction in the main deck once you actually land your pieces. But once you give it flying, it's really hard to like do this loop where you keep on blocking it. And the best strategy usually is that if you can like live long enough, which is like already by itself can be kind of hard against a Spirit Dancer if you can't just like get rid of it. But if you get to live long enough, the best game plan is actually like to try and get lures into play really aggressively, because again, this deck has no interaction with lures, and then you just like block with a Gilded Goose every turn and like replay it from the graveyard. And then you try and like win by draining them out with Mythic Massacre and Cat Oven loops and so on, and like, you know, have the trail activations going while you're doing all of this. Parameter Squirrel, whatever it might be. So that's generally the game plan. Post-board, I get to have a lot more interaction because of Thoughtseize and Calling Ritual. Calling Ritual being kind of insane against this deck. Like it's gotta, you know, blow up the creatures and gain me so much mana. So that's really nice. The blue-white deck probably just brings in 4 Portable Hole. It might not want to oversight board, probably calling the Spell Piercers. Since like a lot of the spells in my deck are so cheap that Spell Pierce like quickly loses its value. But the Portable Holes are also something that gets blown up by Calling Ritual and potentially Outland Liberator if I decide to bring that in. I don't think I actually do. But yeah, that's the makeup of the deck and the matchup. So let's see how it goes here. Once we start. Alright, so I'll start with an absolutely unplayable hand. Cursebound Witch and Soulguard lands on the cards we bought out, and I did not have a Black Sauce in that hand. And here we have like, okay, we have a 1-lander which you can sometimes keep with this deck. And honestly, I wonder if I'm supposed to keep this hand. The thing about it though is that I really want to look for Fatal Push, right? Because game 1, I don't have that many ways to interact with the Spirit Dancer, especially on turn 2, because like Mortality Spirit doesn't work. So I really want to try and find a Fatal Push so that I have that piece of interaction. And I would have kept this hand if it had a push, even though it's only one land, because then that's kind of the upside. But I think here, I'm just better off trying to go to 5 and like look for a card that matters. Or I would have kept it if it had a second land too, because then you can go like Cursebound Witch into Dispute, and I try and find the push off of that. I'm thinking about this and end up mulliganing here. So this hand is like also not very good, but at least I've got, you know, if I draw a cat with this hand, at least it's got something going. And I definitely like, I'm not gonna just go to 4 looking for that fatal push. Meathook Massacre, I think is like pretty nice in the matchup, especially clearing up like Selfless Saviors and Lurus once that comes down. And it can definitely be part of your win condition. But in this hand, it's like looking a little bit weak. I think maybe I'm supposed to put back a Squirrel instead of the second Massacre here, but end up putting back the second Massacre. Me not having double black is part of that as well, but the Squirrel really doesn't do much for me, and I'm just like hoping to draw a cat. Otherwise, like my hand just doesn't work. And if I draw a cat, I would much rather have a Meathook Massacre than a Squirrel here, I think. But opponent needs a Sentinel, and it's just like, I'm not happy to see that. I ended up deciding to play Squirrel here. I think maybe I'm supposed to actually just play Colony Garden. One thing about Esper Sentinel in this matchup is that you can't be too afraid to let them draw cards. Because in the end, like, they actually have a lot of like nonsensical cards in their deck that are just like not that good and easily flood out because they're like cycling a bunch. And they're not playing like, you know, they're playing quite a few lands. So if you just keep playing for Esper Sentinel, you might just fall too far behind on tempo. So that's why I roll out this trade-off drums here, because nothing I really can play here actually matters. Like my other play would be to play like Oven and pay 1, but I'm just like not developing anything of relevance. Whereas these with Trail, I might be able to do something. The issue with playing Squirrel turn 1 instead of the Colony Garden is also seen here, on like multiple ends. First of all, like I had to play my Boseiju as a land, which actually would be really nice because I can kill the Esper Sentinel if I need to. So I think that's a huge oversight. Not having something ready to trump block in case my opponent puts Curious Obsession on something, really big oversight. And yeah, now I'm just like, it would just be nice to have access to free mana next turn if I needed to. And there's a lot of small things there that is just wrong with that play. And since like my hand was not well set up to grow the Squirrel, like if I had a cat, you know, again, like I'm just hoping to draw the cat because then I can like, you know, really enable the Squirrel as a clock here. But yeah, now we're gonna see this Esper Sentinel get loaded up a bit, and it would have been really nice to have a plan, token to jump block with here, but that's just out of the picture. So again, hoping to draw a cat. I do draw an Overgrown Tomb, so I can like kill the token. I decided to like go for Witch's Oven and like pay 1, I think was my line of thinking here. But like that just doesn't even work, right? Because the Esper Sentinel is a 3/3 now. So that was also like just irrelevant. I can play Colony Garden to have a plant token to jump block with, but it's not that hard for them to give flying to the Esper Sentinel, so that might not even work. It's just a whole lot of mess. I think what I should have done was just like crack the food token for life and like hope to find the pieces I need. Maybe I even needed to put Lurus in hand. I'm not sure, but this is definitely not looking good right now. Yeah, that's the Arcane Flight on the Sentinel here. And even more auras getting put on things. So I think something that Strasky is going to be cognizant of here is to make sure that Meathook Massacre doesn't clear off the SRAM. If possible, he might want to put another thing on SRAM here so that if I have Phyrexian Tower plus Meathook Massacre, it still doesn't work. There's another Arcane Flight. Okay, so we'll probably just die in the air next turn if I can't find anything. I mean, this Meathook Massacre, I can like play it by paying 2 life to like get rid of these and like gain some life back, but I only gain 1 life because the Selfless Savior will sacrifice itself. So like the only play I can really do here is like crack my food, try and look for the Cauldron Familiar, and I still just might die to like these flyers. And I think I just at this point decide that I'm not gonna bother with this game anymore. I mean, I'm mulliganed to 5 and made like 3 misplays, so that's, you know, like these are not the games you win already. Anyway, post-board we get to board in Thought Seizes and Culling Rituals. I can collect Cursebound Witch and Soul Guide Lantern, and then it gets kind of tough, but you can shave on Meathoof Massacre. I'm not quite sure I boarded the right way. I think like during the match I figured out that there was like a better way to board. I don't think you can cut, I think you can only cut one Massacre because it's kind of important for your win condition. And I think Trail of Crumbs is like quite a bit worse because it just like matches up board against Esper Sentinel, right? You just get to draw cards. I think I end up like not only boarding in 3 Thought Seizes because I'm under play, which is something I've done before. I don't think that the like logic behind it really makes sense, like necessarily for this matchup, but sometimes it makes sense that Thought Seizes is a lot better on the draw because you can better afford to be interacting with your opponent on the draw, whereas on the play you just want more of your proactive cards. But in this matchup, Thought Seizes is also really good on the draw because you really want to take away that Spirit Dancer. So yeah, I'm not really sure that holds any value. But now we start with the hand here. We have the Culling Ritual. Again, I talked about like how important this card is. So this is definitely a keep, and like we have a fast start with Squirrel. Something to keep in mind though is that I already have to start planning like how much am I playing to the board with this Culling Ritual here. Just like any aggro deck with a sweeper in it, like you can kind of like decide how bad to go here. One really important factor though is that my opponent played Selfless Savior. So Selfless Savior does protect something from Culling Ritual, but I will still blow up all the auras. So now my plan is shifting, right? I'm not gonna like something I could easily do here is just like play a land, make a food with Goose, and then next turn cast Culling Ritual. That would not be a bad line. Just like get rid of their 2-drop and possibly Esper Sentinel. But now, because of the Selfless Savior, I need to get more value out of my Culling Ritual. So I'm gonna wait until like maybe there's a Spirit Dancer in play and there's been drawing some cards, maybe there's another like creature in play, and then I can cast Culling Ritual to blow up like more things. So that's why I'm like more okay with playing something to the board here, because I need to make sure that I force my opponent to like play out their hand as well. So I'm not sure if I need to play the Squirrel though, because I'm actually looking to flood out a little bit. But playing out the second Goose is definitely safe here. And I think playing out the Squirrel can also be quite okay. There's some really good draws, like if I draw a trade or something, then like maybe I just like forgo the Culling Ritual for a while and just work on building up that Squirrel. So yeah, just decide to place to the board here. There's something very realistic I could also do next turn if I break is just put Lures in hand, or activate the Squirrel to draw cards. So I draw a second Squirrel here, and now I'm thinking that this one I don't want it to commit to the board, because now I'm just gonna wait a little bit and like try and set up for my Culling Ritual. The thing is that like how do I do that best? I actually end up playing out the Squirrel. Not sure that's super good. I mean, I get to attack with this Squirrel here for quite a lot actually. Or maybe I just like deal 1 damage, and then I can chump block with a Goose, and I can sacrifice a food, and then sacrifice a Goose to draw a card, like to make a mana, and then sacrifice the Goose to draw a card, which will like grow these Squirrels even more. And then like maybe next turn I can like grow the Squirrels kind of a bit, and that might be like enough to matter on the board. Because again, I know that this Culling Ritual won't kill the Spirit Dancers, and I really need to draw some cards. But I think playing out the second Squirrel is wrong, because I can do something very similar with just 1 Squirrel. I just like won't have that ability to put pressure on my opponent. But if they have like a Sentinel's Eyes, then I won't be able to put pressure on with the Squirrels anyway, because the Spirit Dancer will just be too big. And I also don't have a way to well, I have the Friction Tower to sacrifice. Oh, and the Squirrels. Yeah, okay, so they're not gonna be able to gain life. But since I have the Gooses, like the Geese already in play here, something I really want to look towards is getting the Lures in hand and like rebuild and getting that going. So maybe like saving a Squirrel in hand could be pretty important here. I do decide to attack for 1. I don't draw the card immediately because I want to be able to chump block with a Goose, expecting that there's going to be like a card draw effect, a curiosity effect on the Spirit Dancer. And there's the Sentinel's Eyes, which again, like, it's just gonna completely halt my aggression. I'm not gonna get these Squirrels to be big enough, at least, like, yeah, just like, probably ever, to compete with the Spirit Dancer. And even though the Culling Ritual can blow up all the auras, well, it's also gonna blow up my Squirrels. And even if I get to attack first and deal damage to the Spirit Dancer, also doesn't work, because the Selfless Savior will still give it indestructible. So I really need to like try and find another removal spell so that I can kill the Selfless Savior and then play Calling Ritual. Or like rather the other way, like maybe put Calling Ritual on the stack and then Fatal Push the Spirit Dancer in response to it getting indestructible. Even though that means I don't get much mana because all the auras would die, huh? Yeah, it's kind of funny where like Selfless Savior used to be really bad against like the Mayhem Devil like food deck, but against this deck is actually really good because there's a lot of reliance on killing things, even though there's also Meathook Massacre. Oh, but I draw another Calling Ritual. Okay, that's really good. So one thing I could do here, actually realistically, would be to just play Calling Ritual and make sure I get rid of the Selfless Savior and all these auras that way. But since I can just chump block with this Goose for another turn, I actually think it's fine to hold the Calling Ritual for another turn here. And yeah, I can do it like this. So I can chump block with Goose, and then I can sacrifice the food to make mana, sacrifice the Goose to tower. So my opponent, if they have Staggering Insight, they're not gonna get life. Being careful not to play out my Boseiju, because it's very important to be able to kill portable holes and such later. And then next turn I'll be able to like do Calling Ritual and then like redevelop with Lurrus. And having like Calling Ritual with Lurrus in play is really nice. I do make a pretty big mistake here. I forget to eat the food with the Goose before sacrificing it to tower. I think I should have done that and then sacrificed one squirrel here to draw a card. Because I think cashing in that card is just more important than anything else. But instead there's a second Spirit Dancer, which I'm really happy to see. Now this Calling Ritual is really going to get me some good value here. Alright, so I draw an Oven. Definitely not playing that before the Ritual here. So I'm just trying to like count it up and see how much mana I can make. Do like remember that the Selfless Savior is going to get a sacrifice in response, and the Spirit Dancer is going to get indestructible. So those won't get destroyed by Calling Ritual. So it's only the 3 auras on this one. And 1 aura here, the Spirit Dancer, my squirrels, and the food. That's actually still a lot, right? Like that is quite a lot of mana. But I don't quite have enough where I can like draw a card off a squirrel and then cast the Calling Ritual. So I'm going to be a little bit short on my card advantage engines here. And what I can basically just do is like play Lurrus and get a squirrel back, and then maybe like play the Oven and sacrifice it. I could also play the Boseiju first and have the Hive up and then attack with the Hive. That's not too relevant. And I actually realized that here I can also oh no, please don't play the Boseiju. I think I'm gonna end up doing that. I actually can also just attack with these squirrels, right? Because one of them is gonna get eaten by Spirit Dancer, that's fine. The other one is gonna get in for 4 damage. I don't need that extra mana from the one squirrel being eaten. And so I think that and like this 3/5 cannot block a squirrel, right? Because I can just sacrifice a food and make it a 5/5. So that way I get to get in for 4 damage, which is more than getting in with a Hive anyway. So I'm just using my attack step before playing the Calling Ritual. Getting in with both squirrels here. But yeah, I could have like either not have 2 squirrels in play, so I had another one to follow up with. Or I could have, oh, please don't play the Boseiju. Yeah, you're just really not supposed to do that. That could have really been important later on. I can tell you. But yeah, I could have like either had, you know, like not played the second squirrel, or could have like sequenced in a way where I got to like draw a card off of it. Because as you see, I have like so much mana here, but if I'd like sacrificed the food and the squirrel last turn, you know, I would have been a much better spot. I wouldn't get in for the extra damage, but that doesn't really matter. Oh yeah, I need to play the Gilded Goose anyway here. Rather than the squirrel from the graveyard, because I need to have a blocker for the Spirit Dancer in case it like gets flying and Staggering Insight, because you really want to like stop that train. Oh, and if I don't need to block it, I can also just take the damage, and then I want to play the Ravenous Squirrel next turn, potentially after playing Calling Ritual. So I guess I always block with the Squirrel Heart. Playing the Witch's Oven I think is also pretty wrong. I do get to make an extra food, but that doesn't really matter because I know I'm going to cast a Calling Ritual next turn. I don't think it's a big tell if I don't play the Oven that my opponent is going to play around the second Ritual. So I should just help the Oven in hand and had it at the ready. And like these things are definitely going to matter. Playing Calling Ritual with Lurrus in play is really strong though, because it's not going to get hit itself. But yeah, here I would have been just totally fine holding the Boseiju in hand, and blocking with the Goose, and then just letting them gain the life here. I think that would have been totally fine, and like not having the Witch's Oven as well. Now I draw Fatal Push, which is actually pretty important because I'm gonna try and see if I can set that up so that I can kill Lurrus. There is a Selfless Savior in the graveyard, so ideally I want to set it up where I can, like, when they play Lurrus and then they play Selfless Savior, on the stack I can enable Revolt and then push their Lurrus. It's gonna be a very important interaction here. But yeah, now I just play Culling Ritual before. Since I played my land, I can actually like animate my Hive here, so it's very important that I type my lands in the right way. And I can get in for a pretty big chunk of damage here, as well as just play either a Squirrel or Goose. But now I think I want to play the Squirrel. Why though? Actually, isn't it better to play the Goose? No, because I don't have that much mana next turn. So next turn I can like play my Goose and you block with it and then sacrifice it to Squirrel, right? And I'll get that food left over. And I won't be able to like make a food with the Goose. Maybe I would actually. Right, so here's another Selfless Savior, which definitely matters because it's going to be able to save a Lurrus down the line. So I want to get rid of the Selfless Savior ideally. And here's a Light Ball. So there's, you know, even through 2 Culling Rituals, this Aura Stack is still humming and rebuilding. But we've got our Lurrus engine up now. Like we've been, you know, able to save ourselves at a pretty high life total. And now it's just all about the grind here. Like this Light Pulse, yeah, it's gonna get to fetch an All that glitters, and it's gonna be huge, but it's not ever gonna get in because of my geese. Or at least the 1 Goose that I have available. Of course, it's also Vigilance, so I can't get in with anything either, but that's usually not gonna be a problem. At some point, I'll find the Cat Oven combo or like the Meat Hook Massacre. And then my opponent's only at 7 life here, so the drain is gonna come pretty quickly. Now we see the Lurrus being played here, and I just really want to find like a, you know, either a Meat Hook Massacre or maybe like a second push or Mortality Spear or something. Some way to like be able to kill the Lurrus through the Selfless Saviors. So going to block with the Goose and just start by drawing cards here. I should have actually tapped the Phyrexian Tower, I think. Very small mistake here. But if I draw Mortality Spear, I guess I won't have a way to gain life, huh? Yeah, so I can't do both. But I did draw a push, so that's really lucky. And the Boseiju, which is going to help me later against a potential portable hole. Do keep in mind that Boseiju only costs 1 mana with Lurrus in play. So here's the Selfless Savior from the graveyard. The exact play I described here is that I'm just gonna get rid of the Lurrus with my 2 Fatal Pushes here. Because I do have a treasure to get the mana I need. I'm not gonna be able to draw a card this turn with Squirrel, but that's okay. Because like now, you know, like now the card advantage engine has been like, you know, fizzled here. There's only like 2 Shram and 1 Core Spirit Dancer in the deck to draw cards for my opponent. He has this like huge Light Pulse, but I can block it every turn. There's no answer to a Lurrus in the deck because it's only Portable Hole as interaction, and there's no Graveyard Hate. And if there is a Portable Hole on the Gilded Goose, I can just Boseiju the Portable Hole to get my Goose back. While I have this card draw engine where I'm gonna start drawing like 2 to 3 cards a turn. So like this is really like the engine humming here. And I draw a Witch's Oven, which is also kind of nice, potentially. Especially like once I find a cat, that could be very important. Okay, so there's a Shram here, but maybe no Aura. Okay, there is an Aura, and Strasky is smartly deciding to build up on the second creature. And also deciding that to be Esper Sentinel. Remember that I can always Boseiju the Sentinel if I need to. I actually don't think I'm aware of this at all in the match. I make like countless mistakes this match. It's kind of embarrassing. Alright, so Light Pulse gets in, and oh no, please don't Boseiju. I think I'm just like thinking about if I should Boseiju and then I don't need to sacrifice anything, but that's just like nonsense. Right, because I have exactly 3 mana this turn, so I might as well like sacrifice now. Obviously, like you can sacrifice to the oven first and then sacrifice the food to Squirrel, and that way your Squirrel gets larger, which definitely matters, right? Because I'm trying to outsize this Esper Sentinel now so that it can't attack. Right, here's the second Sentinel, but that's alright. I don't have that many non-creature spells I'm interested in playing right now. It's mostly Meat Hook Massacre anyway. But now I draw Thoughtseize, and I'm kind of like, okay, well that card is dead right now. And I feel a bit annoyed that I brought it in, but it's actually like, I think I'm kind of wrong about that assumption, but we'll see later what I mean by that. I decided to activate my squirrel precon, like, before doing anything else. That's totally fine. Especially since I really want to try and find a land drop, right? Because I want to, I mean, I have 2 extra copies of legendary lands in play anyway, so I can't play that. I'm definitely not going to play my Thoughtseize. So yeah, I really want to find that land, and I hit Looming Marsh, so that's really nice. Yeah, so I think earlier, like when I said that I shouldn't have played Boseiju, I think, especially like since I drew the second Boseiju, I probably would have ended up playing the first one anyway, because I actually could really use the mana. But down the line, again, also ends up being kind of a problem that I don't have 2 Boseijus here. Anyway, staggering inside on this Esper Sentinel, sure it gets bigger, but it's not actually a problem. It's only a problem once second Arcane Flight comes down. And I think there's only 1 left in my opponent's deck, right? Potentially? I'm not sure. There's 1 of this Light Pulse, and I don't know if there's any in the graveyard. Anyhow, here's Portable Hole on the Ravenous Squirrel. Makes sense to hit the Squirrel, not the Goose, because I have a second Goose to play from the graveyard anyway. And just getting in for 17 damage is not that good, but removing my Card of Endless Engine is kind of nice. It also lets you attack with the Sentinel. And also if I have a Boseiju, like later, if I have like a way to kill the Portable Hole, later on, I'll just get back the Goose and get an extra food. Whereas if you take away the Squirrel, it's just gonna come back as a 1/1. But I can respond to the trigger with Boseiju, which is why it's really important that I have access to that. But like now I'm out, you know, no more Boseijus. And again, I could have used it to kill Sentinel at any, well, not actually, because there's a Selfless Savior in play. But we still have our engine up and running here, right? You know, my opponent might draw some cards when they play an aura, but they don't have that many auras in the deck, so it can't really change. There's only 1 Shram. So I still have the better card draw engine going. I just gotta hope that before, you know, now I need to find another piece of safety against the Portable Hole. But I'm just drawing a few lands here, which does not really matter. But I have reached the 7 mana point here, where I can draw 2 extra cards a turn with the Squirrel. So it's going to get very large. I think I decided to just activate the Squirrel here. Instead of using the Oven, to have Oven up as a safety for some reason, but I don't think that matters at all. I should just like get that extra, like use the Oven so I get an extra counter on the Squirrel. But here's another land. I'm really starting to feel like, where's my cat? You know, the opponent's only at 7 life. I have all these like ways to sacrifice and these extra food tokens. So like a cat would be like almost lethal at this point. Like seriously, it would, right? If I had a cat here, it would be like 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then with this Witch's Oven it would be lethal. So yeah, if like one of these lands were a cat, it would have had lethal now. But it's not, so I'm just gonna try and keep digging for it. I find a Trail of Crumbs. Okay, so that's kind of interesting, but right now I'm thinking, that's also really annoying because I don't want my opponent to draw these extra cards with these Sentinels. Right, so I feel like I want to like pay like 1 mana for 1 Sentinel, let them draw a card with the other Sentinel, and then like that's the entire cost is gonna be for me to like draw a card with the Squirrel anyway. So like, is it really worth it for me to like spend all that mana to get like a trail into play and then have to spend even more mana to look for cards? And I think of it as a dead card here. I think right now, since I also need to play my Goose, I think it actually is okay to hold it this turn. But something I kind of miss is that these Sentinels only trigger once per turn. I'm counting this Thoughtseize here, which you can see vaguely in my hand. I'm counting that as a dead card. Like in my mind, I just written it off. But it's not a dead card. Because with Trail of Crumbs, I can let my opponent draw cards with Sentinels, and then I can Thoughtseize without them drawing more cards. So that way, the Thoughtseize is kind of like a way to get around the Esper Sentinel attacks. And I get to kind of like do like a weird like Thought-Knot-Seer type thing where, you know, like depending on like if they draw some good card, I get to take that away. And that way I get to like kind of interact with the top of their library. I mean, they're obviously gonna like have new cards to draw, but... Anyway, I end up playing out my Goose, I don't play out my Oven. That's also, by the way, a good argument for like trying to set up a big turn where I play all my non-creature spells, is that then I can also play the Oven without my opponent drawing extra cards. So that when I find that cat, it's going to be better. Or even that Meathook Massacre. But anyway, that was another big hit here, and the opponent just plays a land and passes. And like, this is like really, you know, how the matchup usually go. Like, I don't think these like long games is how it usually goes. But when you get the Lurrus lock up, and like, you know, like, letting the overdeck draw cards is not that scary, because they do have, it's very easy for that deck to flood. And like, you know, they just played a Curious Obsession, which didn't do anything, drew into a card that was just a land. And like, that's just, there's so many cards that don't really matter from Strasky here. Right now, I'm still thinking, should I play the Trail? But I don't recognize, I can draw second Thoughtseize now. I can just play the Trail, pay for none of the Sentinels, and just Thoughtseize. If there was 2 good cards drawn, I can Thoughtseize again. Easily. And once I have Trail down, the cards I'm looking for is like Meathook Massacre and Cat. It's gonna be really hard to miss on those when I have the Trail going. So, I think I make a pretty big mistake on that account. I also really like regret that I didn't board in Outland Liberators, because Strasky is running 4 copies of Portable Hole, plus the fact that it can like sometimes take out an Arcane Flight, which is also a card I'm scared of, and it can take out the Esper Sentinel. And it's a card I can play without having to pay for the Sentinel taxes. I think Portable Hole would have been, I think that Outland Liberator would have been very good here. And I'm kind of sad to like not have access to it. Definitely feel like I should have bought it in. But anyway, to play this turn, to play Trail, let them draw 2 cards, and Thoughtseize. And potentially Thoughtseize again if I need to. And then also play the Oven, because I probably can. Depending on like how the mana exactly shakes out. Like if that takes me under 3 mana and down to 2, then maybe I won't play the Oven. So it might depend on how many Thoughtseizes I run. But I can definitely like, play a Trail, play a Goose, play a Thoughtseize, play a land, play Oven, and then still like activate Squirrel and pay for Trail, right? Looking 3 cards deep. That would be a really strong turn. But yeah, I completely forget how the Esper Sentinel works. And decide that it's just still better for me to just spend my mana drawing cards with Squirrel. But it's not really that much better either, because I don't actually have enough mana to like go super ham with the Squirrel here. And if I sacrifice too many food tokens, I won't have lethal with Cat anymore. So I end up deciding to main phase an activation of the Squirrel. I don't think I paid too much attention to how I tap here, which is awkward because it ends up tapping a lot of green sources. I draw another Thoughtseize. I'm just like cursing myself. Only brought in 3 Thoughtseizes and now I'm drawing them when they're just totally dead here. Not realizing that they actually aren't dead. Try and draw again, try and find a cat, maybe another goose, you know, something good. I find another squirrel, which is definitely like not irrelevant. I can play that, I can play the goose. I can play this land. And definitely not playing my oven to not enable more card draws, but yeah, I'm feeling like, you know, at some point I gotta get there, but my opponent might also get there. And here's Arcane Flight, which is like really scary, right? Because now the Sentinel is gonna get through and start to draw cards and deal me damage. Now there's 2 different flying threats. And here's a Portable Hole, which can take away the goose, and I'm, you know, like, I almost died to this attack here. This is 25 damage. I'm luckily at 30 life, so like, it's not that terrible. I decide to cash in the goose to make a food here, which also grows my squirrels. That could matter. But this is a lot of damage, and now I'm really in the weeds here. And, you know, like, my opponent's, Ondrej's top 2 cards here were the Arcane Flight into the Portable Hole. If I had played Trail last turn, made him draw 2 cards, and then Thoughtseized, I would have, twice, I would have gotten to take away the Portable Hole and the Arcane Flight, which are the cards I'm scared of. So, yeah, that was definitely an oversight, that the Thoughtseize actually matters. In such a weird way, where, like, at least, like, it takes away the downside of Sentinel. And I don't know what would have been on top of his deck here, but maybe it could have easily been a blank, right? I'm not gonna get to know it now, but like maybe if I played the Trail last turn, you know, I would have been able to dig deep enough in my deck bind. Like I would have definitely like this would not have happened, and I would have been able to dig deep enough into my deck to find the pieces I need, the like Meathook Massacres and Cat and whatnot. And then like he probably would have been at 32 life, which is also like now the situation is completely, because like now if I draw a cat, it's just not even close to lethal. And I still need to like put up 2 flying blockers now every turn. So it's just a whole lot of a mess here. And I can at least like play 1 goose and then gain enough life to survive the sentinel attack. But I also need to make sure that I can like survive the attack from all the 1/1s. So yeah, definitely need like quite a bit of life here. And I'm already like kind of low on my timer. So that's not good either, right? Because like now I need to spend a lot of time figuring out how to stabilize this. And then I need to like find a win. And then I also need to like win a game 3. So also, yeah, things have gone like pretty wrong here. And you can also see, by the way, like why, you know, that Boseiju that is in play right now, why I really wish that was in my hand. Because that could have just like completely changed the situation here. Could have like gotten back my goose or killed the arcane flight or something. No, if I kill the arcane flight, I get to block with squirrel, and yeah, that's just like so much better. Anyway, and now I'm just planning out, like, you know, like, what's the best, you know, can I play Trail first? Does that actually get me deeper? And I just end up deciding that it does. I'm still not thinking about Faulties, by the way. I mean, now it's also, like, a little bit too late, but I just really need to find, like, more geese here. That's what I'm trying to look for. So I can, like, block with 2 geese now, and then, like, maybe I can try and set something up. It's just, like, kind of hard. At least this, I can, like, maybe do, like, a Meat Hook Massacre for, like, X = 6, and then I clear off the Sentinels that way, but it's just, it's kind of hard. And like now I'm thinking out, okay, well, I mean, I still have like another look with my trail to like try and find a goose, do I? Well, maybe not. Yeah, now I just need to make sure that I can like sacrifice a food for life. Because I might need to do that here. And I'm discarding this like useless Faulties, which like, again, I have not recognized as a real card this match, but it definitely was real. And obviously would have been very good turn 1 as well. But the fact that it's even like relevant this late in the game make me think that yeah, you should just have like all 4 Faulties in your deck. So use an Alpha Strike, and so the way I map this out really quickly, right? So one thing I do note there is that actually is not a piece of interaction. There's Iganjo in his deck. He has drawn a lot of cards. I think he has like 17 cards left in his deck or something, maybe 12, like very far into his deck. And he has the Otavara in play, luckily, so that's not a piece of interaction. But Iganjo is still available. And just like deal 4 damage to a blocking creature. So ideally I want to not block with my Lurrus. But if I gain 3 life off of a food token here, I go to 9, and I block the 19/19, and then I can't block the other flyer, but I can block like a SRAM and a 1/1. There's 9 damage lined up here, 6 + 1 + 1 + 1. So I have to block with Lurrus in order to survive. And then it gets to be a Ganjoed. So I'll go to 1 life in that case. So that's not really good, right? Because then I lose my whole engine, and even if I like find a way to come back, I'm just like dead. So yeah, let's just like let this game run its course here while things are going down. And if you don't need to get too much into like the small decisions that I'm making at this point, because it's the House of Cards has already fallen apart, and and I pushed it, right? This is definitely like my old mistake. This whole match was just like a big mess, and I definitely see that now. You know, I already knew that it was not looking great, but this is just so problematic. I get to find like another Meat Hook Massacre, but it's just way too late at this point. I mean, even though I can cast it for X equals quite a lot here, and right, let me count this mana here. Yeah, I'm just like not gonna be able. Well, I need to like, if I draw Goose, then maybe I can make something happen. Because then I will be able to chomp like the Light Pulse for another turn, and my Ravenous Squirrel will still be alive. Like, maybe both of them? That doesn't seem like it, because one of them is just a 5/5. I draw Cauldron Familiar again, but just way too late here. I'm not gonna be able to like gain enough life points. And but I can still like try and find that Goose, right? So I can do this Meat Hook Massacre, clear up all the 1/1s here. So I don't need to worry about that. Just gonna let my opponent draw a card off the Sentinel, because I'm definitely not paying 6. And I'm also not gonna gain too much life off the Me Too car because yeah, it only like kills one thing. And then like, maybe if I can find a goose, you know, like maybe these squirrels are gonna be large enough that they're kind of threatening, and like maybe that's the way I get back into this game. But he also has like more portable holes and like probably ways to break through, so that might not even work. But I'm just like really looking for like 2 geese would be optimal here. This is what I'm trying to draw. I do have the friction tower to go with the familiar here, but somehow last turn I ended up like playing a second friction tower, which really hurt me because now I don't have that extra mana here and that extra look to try and find something. But I mean, just more cats coming. Like now I really need the geese, but it is not what's turning up here. I could have maybe also played the second Trail of Crumbs, honestly, at some point. I guess I wouldn't really have had mana to do that and pay for the goose. But yeah, wrong green card here. Not finding a way to survive. This is, by the way, why I'm going full control here, because I'm trying to be able to like sacrifice all the food at once. But I've, you know, don't manage to sacrifice the last food, which maybe could have mattered, but I don't think it would have, right? Because this Esper Sentinel would also probably end up being lethal. So, yeah, we are just dead here. I mean, both the creatures are indestructible, so even though my squirrels are really large, it does not matter because these, yeah, I mean, they can't really attack into the indestructible creatures, and so I lose. Quite unhappy with this. With this match here. I really felt like if I had more experience with the matchup, I would have been able to win. I would have been able to sideboard better, board in the Outline Liberators, like play better with the Culling Rituals and so on. But that's definitely the price I paid for. Like I did practice this matchup I think 4 times. Twice where I played from the Aura side, and then I think maybe only once actually where I played from the black-green side. Where we were like just spending like an afternoon going through like all the popular historic decks. But yeah, now I definitely feel the regret that I, you know, haven't like put in that much work on this food deck, and definitely shows. So anyway, that's my second loss on the day. I am 4-2 though. I've still locked up day 2, so that's fine. We're going into the last round here, and we're really looking for a win in the last round. Because it's kind of funny with tournaments, but like whether you win or lose in the last round is like so important for how your mood is when you go to bed that day. So yeah, definitely hoping for a win here, and maybe some easier opponents at this point. I've had like some pretty tough opposition by now on this day, so it would be nice if we could just be eased up a little bit. See you for the next match.